And we are live. Welcome to another episode of Business Focus Live with me, John, where we talk about business related topics as well as news from here and around the world. If you're new to this channel, don't forget to subscribe and let's get started. And we're back. Thank you again for joining me today. So this week we'll be talking about several interesting that's happened in the past week. First and foremost, I thought this year or even last year, the drug that was going to make a big impact worldwide was finding the vaccine, to help prevent spread of COVID-19. But a company by the name of Biogen was able to, well, get approval from the FDA in the United States regarding a drug to combat Alzheimer's. Now, for those who are not familiar, Alzheimer's is a degenerative, neural disease in our brain, which it's not, no one wants to have that kind of disease, but it does happen. So obviously being able to find a cure, I won't say cure, but a drug that can combat it or even slow or even regenerate your brain cells would be tremendous. And there are a lot of issues that we'll talk about in a bit. Then next we have, with the advancement of technology, relying more on the internet for businesses and for connectivity connections with around the world. Obviously the downside of this is companies having to deal with cyber attacks, and how do you combat that. Next we have a company, in this case a ride sharing company, Didi, known in China. It's making its big IPO, so to generate more capital to expand the business, not just regionally in China, maybe even in other regions in the world. Next, we have a company, an AI company that can help businesses find the right people for the right job by using machine learning and artificial intelligence here. Next, we have uh, Amazon. Yeah, they're always been in the news, whether good or bad. And in this case, they're removing a known brand for doing devious tactics in terms of marketing. So we'll take a closer look as to why they're doing it. And finally, Sony. So stay tuned for the last part. So we're talking about Sony's, what do you call this? Sony's first attempt to go into the drone or FPV category here, competing with the likes of DJI, the company, by creating their own drones. Obviously, they're known for creating, several products, entertainment, even console games, even DSLR cameras for photography and videography. So they're trying to, diversify or spread their market here. Anyway, so let's start off. Anyway, as I mentioned earlier, the company, Biogen, as I mentioned earlier, is the first ever company to be able to get an FDA approved drug to combat Alzheimer's. And, it's not going to be cheap. And according to the article here, we have businessinsider.com. How much is it? Let me see. So it mentions here it's going to cost around $60,000, $56,000. So it's not going to be cheap. And if it's one thing that the product that they're advertising has a high effectivity rate, but based on the feedback from different scientific community and other knowledgeable people, it's somewhat mixed. So I don't know what to think of it, but let's take a closer look here. So as mentioned, the arrival of the first ever Alzheimer's drug, which is tremendous. Just think of it. If they could find a drug to combat Alzheimer's, maybe you can look at other degenerative diseases, could be multiple sclerosis, or even other, uh, what do you call this? Other diseases that could cause fatality, maybe HIV, cancer, and things of that nature. But let's stick first with the Alzheimer's product. So according to the FDA, they have approved the medication. It's called Alduhelm. Is it Alduhelm? Let me see. I, where was it? The name. Yeah, it's here. So under the name and Adulhelm, I don't know how you pronounce it, but that's the that's the name. Anyway, so the objective or the purpose of the drug here is to be able to remove sticky plaque that builds up inside your brain, which causes Alzheimer's. That's why you tend to lose your memory over time because of the build up plaques in your brain cells, in a sense. Is that right? Or literally in your brain? But either way. So the point here is if the drug can do its intended purpose, then that could be tremendous. So or maybe prolong the not necessarily prolong the disease, but delay the onset of Alzheimer's or even cure it if it's possible. But the problem here is it is not clear that using the drug could lead to said intention of cleaning the plaques in your brains and improving your memory and even cognition, which is the effect of what Alzheimer's can do. And according to a Dr. David Knopman, a neurologist at the Mayo Clinic, he stated that he does not believe the drug provides the benefit, which is where we get into hot water here, whether the company is telling the truth or they're fudging their result. But the problem here is, at the end of the day, to be able to sell it to the mass public or to those people who have Alzheimer's diseases, it has to be approved by the government, and the governing body that deals with this one is the Food and Drug Authority. And so should we be concerned or should we be elated about the news, since it's approved by a governing body that you can have confidence in the effectiveness of the drug? Maybe. And the question here is, a lot of people are asking regarding the process that was followed, the effectiveness, what was the test subjects protocols, was it followed, and so forth and so forth. And it mentions that the attempts of the company, in this case Biogen, actually failed in one of their late stage clinical trial, which happened way back in 2019, so just 2 years ago. And then it was revived later this year when the analysis found that a group of participants in the second trial had benefited from the drug. Now, what do you mean by benefited? Is there a significant improvement, minimal improvement, and so forth? But either way, they proceeded with this, and you know, and proceeded with the trials and sent their results to the FDA. But what's interesting here is the cost that they're going to charge. Now, obviously, if a company does a lot of R&D, they want to recoup those investment, and they're going to charge you almost $60,000 per year. So that's not going to be cheap, and who can afford those? Obviously, Alzheimer's doesn't choose whether you're wealthy or poor, but it's going to be expensive here. And what's interesting, in the United States alone, there are some 6 million people affected with the disease, as mentioned. So obviously, finding a solution or a cure or a way to stop the process is critical, since especially people the age group of 65 and above are typically the most prone. So taking care of them it's a almost a 400 billion industry. So that's how expensive it is. And the government is paying for the Medicare or the Medicaid payments in the sum of 200 billion. So if you can reduce that, obviously the government has the is incentivized to to approve the drug. But the question is it effective, which is the main contention here. The company is stating that it has some effectiveness. Is it 5%, 10%, 50, and so forth? So, but obviously on the opposite spectrum, if you're the patient, you have no choice, so you're willing to take the risk. But again, the price is driving, because of the increase of price, there will be limited people who can actually afford it. So I don't know if that's going to be the case, but I think the medicine or the drugs will be subsidized by the government, which is I think what the company is doing here. And according to the FDA, it approved the drug Adulhelm because of the potential benefits. Now, potential is one thing, and based on their statement that it outweighs the drug risk, which is another concerning aspect, because we don't know what the unintended consequence of taking the drug. It may help alleviate or reduce the plaques in your brain, but what's the other consequence? Could it lead to more severe damage to other parts of your body or even your brain? So obviously that's why trials take so long, takes years or even decades before, or even not, even forever before, they couldn't find a viable solution for a particular disease, or in this case, Alzheimer's. But obviously Biogen is contesting that the reduction of what do you call this amyloid plaques was reasonably likely. Now, what is considered reasonably? What percentage is reasonably? Is it 5% of the time, 10%? And again, so obviously the how they conducted their test should be vetted carefully, and obviously you need experts to look at this, because if the FDA approve a not as effective, imagine if the vaccine for COVID-19 went through this process and then just simply approved for mass consumption, uh, could be catastrophic here. But you know uh, what the company here is betting that the US government would cover much of the expense here, which is, I think that's why they're pushing for the drug to be approved, which in this case, it's not their fault if the FDA government approved the drug. So, blame those people who are making the decision. But the another issue that stems from the accuracy of the result of the test is there are very few people who are enrolled in the trials, which cause to lead to more delays, which is obviously, even though 6 million is considered a lot, but obviously you have to have the right profile circumstances to be able to be part of the test in terms of age, health conditions, and so forth. And obviously detecting Alzheimer's is very difficult, unless you have family history of Alzheimer's, but that's still not yet a guaranteed checklist, right? So obviously it takes a long time to be able to do it properly, and assume that you follow the process here. And what's interesting that only 1% of patients are referred or considered participating in a clinical trial. So it just goes to show you how difficult it is to find a viable test subject here, in particular to be able to have the desired result here. So meaning the companies here, or whoever is conducting the test, don't have very good ways of diagnosing the disease, since it takes a long time. By then, it's already in the latter stages, in a sense. So unless they find a better standardized way of identifying or detecting early onsets of Alzheimer's, you know, could 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 benefit a lot of people here in the future. Now, obviously, people with Alzheimer's and caregivers, those who take care of those people, would take their chances, take the risk, even if it's considered experimental, so to speak. But obviously, uh, you know, if you have no choice, you're always willing to take the risk. And what one of the concerning when the article mentions this, could cause a risk of brain swelling, which is something that you don't want to happen, because if there's something wrong with your brain and if it deteriorates, it's not easily fixed as your other bodily parts here. And on a related article here, the company is, I don't know if it's a PR stunt here, they're stating here that the price that they're charging is considered fair. The 56,000 annual fee is considered fair, maybe, but is it fair to, it limits who can afford it? And are they trying to recoup their investment in the shortest time possible, or are you trying to help other people here? And and on a related story here, what was it? yeah, arstechnica.com, the article mentions, or was it? Yeah. So a researcher is calling the FDA's approval a disgraceful decision here. Now, obviously, you know, how are they able to come up with a how are they able to approve such limited information with the drug testing and so forth? So obviously, at the end of the day, you know, if people make the wrong decisions, could have a severe impact. Obviously, this benefits the company who created the drug, and can it help any person here at any level? If it can, you know, I'm all for it. But if it creates more havoc than the benefit, then maybe we want to reconsider the efficacy or what the drugs can do for anyone here in the long run. Anyway, so next we have uh the the company, the ride sharing giant in China, which is Didi, is filing for an IPO or initial public offering in the United States. Now, obviously, a company does that to generate more valuation, more value, more investors, more capital, so that a company could grow significantly. That's always the best bet. So, if you're interested in investing in the company, then you know they're expecting to generate as much as a valuation of in the north of $100 billion here. Now, for those who are not familiar, you know, Didi Choosing, I don't know if it's pronounced correctly, is a ride-sharing company uh, that is under the legal name Xiaoju Kuaishi. I hope I'm pronouncing it. So it's a Beijing-based company here. So they're under the symbol of Didi, whether they're going to be listed in under Nasdaq or even in the New York Stock Exchange. So what's interesting here, the company has been doing tremendously in terms of the first 3 months of this year alone has generated or doubled their revenue compared to previous year to in the sum of $6.4 billion. And despite that, they were only able to eke out a profit of 30 million, meaning in terms of high cost maybe, and obviously compared with making investments in their businesses and so forth. Now, what's interesting here, the company here has a active user of almost 500 million. So meaning obviously targeting a big market in China, it's going to generate a lot of revenue here. But they're spread in 15 countries worldwide. But 90% of their revenue is from China itself. So they heavily rely in their domestic market here. Now, obviously, going to the IPO route is obviously to be able to gain traction in other regions to compete with the likes of Grab and Uber and in other regions. Actually, was it Grab or Uber? I forgot it. Earlier, before, I think it was Grab. Let me see here. Is it Grab? Grab. Rideshare. Yeah, I forgot which one. I think it's Uber. Yeah, it's Uber. Now I remember. Okay, so actually before it was Uber who was competing with the company Didi, but eventually they were pushed out by the company. Obviously, the government has incentives to protect the local businesses and less incentives to help foreign businesses to establish in China. Anyway, so they were able to, I won't say monopolize, but technically it's but what's interesting here, when Uber left, they bought shares uh with the Didi company here. So they have a stake in the company itself. So if they do well, they would earn a substantial return. Anyway, so obviously the fund here is their focus on increasing their international market, as I mentioned. And then another part of their capital that they're going to generate is to invest in technologies ranging from autonomous driving to electric vehicles. Now, I'm more so in favor of investing in autonomous vehicles to expedite technology, obviously making the car more safe, but it's still decades, years and decades away. Just take a look at where Tesla is right now. Even if they're pushing for autopilot feature, it's only auto assess. It's not fully autonomous. So but investing in the technology is tremendous. On the downside is, you having to deal with, obviously you're removing the human aspect of, being able to drive the vehicle. So being a driver, gig a gig economy like this one, will not last long in a sense. So question is, there are always pros with better technology and cons, meaning, a lot of people with out of a job, especially in the taxi service and so forth. But still, the company, which is owned or founded by Mr. Cheng Wei, which was founded way back in 2012, which is a former Alibaba executive here. So what's interesting here is the founder, which Mr. Cheng, only owns 7% of the company, while SoftBanks, which is a Japanese company who invested in the company, has the largest largest stake of 21.5%. And then you have Uber, who has almost 13% stake, and Tencent, the company, has 6.8%. What's interesting that SoftBank is heavily investing in a lot of technologies in different companies, right? Obviously, in Japan, they're very apprehensive in terms of what they call this, of immigrants in their country, right? They prefer to have a homogeneous nation and so forth. So they rely more on technology rather than on people, because their population is already aging quickly and they need to replenish that. So they're heavily reliant on technology. But my question, who's going to manage those machines eventually? You still need people, right? But to each his own. So we'll see how it pans out for those countries, even for those companies. Anyway, so the concern here is, obviously, when you're trying to create an IPO for any company, is there's going to be increased competition, more scrutiny in your performances. Obviously, becoming a publicly listed company, not just domestically but also foreign. But obviously, this gives credence that they're prioritizing local companies to do well, whether you're Alibaba, Tencent, or in this case, even Didi here. So obviously, onwards and upwards, trying to move forward here. Anyway, so continuing with the technology here. So here we have another company who's using AI and machine learning to help businesses look for the right people for the right job. So let's say you're a company looking for, let's say, an accountant, an engineer, whatever profession. So rather than go to the, I won't say boring process, but the laborious process of sifting through the hundreds and thousands of application every day and every month and every year, and then you have to sift through it, go to the interview, go to a test. What if there's a way to expedite it? Now, can machine learning replicate all of those or replace those? It's a big question that we're waiting to see here. But one such company is doing this so that it can prove that it can be feasible and be lucrative. And how do you know if it's lucrative? The company we're just talking about, SoftBank, there, who is investing in a lot of technologies, is funding the company called Eightfold here. And they're investing in the sum of $220 million. So, they're really investing in technology to help their country, their businesses, and their people in the long run. Anyway, so let's see here. So as I mentioned, so AI, the company Eightfold AI is a startup business that uses deep learning and artificial intelligence, or AI, to help companies find, recruit, and even retain workers. Now, how easy is that? Not easier said than that, because you're dealing with people here. That's why people have a job in HR, because it's difficult to retain people because you don't know what they're thinking, how to hire the right people or hire the best people. Is it just shelling out more money and incentives and so forth? Not necessarily. It's not an exact science. So maybe machine learning can do an even better job. Maybe. Anyway, so according to the founder of the company, you have Chief Executive Ashutosh Garg. Anyway, he mentions that helping companies or any companies or their clients with talent acquisition, which is, getting more difficult with what's happening with the pandemic. People are stuck at home. They're very worried in terms of, is it safe to go out? And even if you're vaccinated, how safe is this? And do you just go back to some normalcy than compared to before the pandemic, or has things changed dramatically that there have been reports, in the fast food chain, even McDonald's are trying to pay people to go to interviews alone. So maybe, having this technology would alleviate those, but obviously that's going to be cheap. But still, you need to find a way to solve a particular problem. And obviously, being able to find talent and be able to retain it is important. And sifting through tons and tons of data or metadata is a daunting task, even if you have, several hundreds of people doing the process, and it takes time. But obviously, with machine, maybe you can fast track this and find better results here. Now, according to the CEO, instead of searching for a job, a candidate can upload their resume and the system will tell you the most relevant job for that candidate in real time. Now, I don't know, I'm comfortable a machine would tell me what job I can and can't do. But the interesting here is it would spit out immediate result. Now, won't it be better if they can connect you right away to a company that's looking for that particular job? If you're interested, then you may apply for it. If not, then maybe you want to look at something else. Maybe give you a different option, give you a different list, categories. This is your first choice, second choice, and so forth. But finding the right match is one thing, and another, he mentions that obviously reducing the drop-off rate, meaning the attrition rate as well. When someone applies who pushes through with the application, or maybe changed mind, go to a different company, and so forth. So there are nuances that obviously a machine has difficulty learning that, and it has to be taught. So, but the potential is there, as mentioned here. So the company here has amassed over 100 countries here, 100 clients, amassed clients over 100 countries. So offering these services could be tremendous to them. And or was it? Yeah. So obviously the goal, as mentioned, is to enable employers to deploy the platform internally and help their employees discover promotions and new role opportunities within their organization, which is, who doesn't want that to expedite, make it clear cut in a sense, more transparent. But my concern here is obviously being able to do it effectively, because you're dealing with people with emotions. So can you take out the emotion in the platform there, and would it be what do you call this? Will it be fair? Or it doesn't matter, because obviously it looks at the data, and if it makes sense for the data, then it would recommend it. If it does not, then it throws it away. So obviously there are unintended consequences with any new technologies here. But again, with what's happening since last year, recruitment is a key issue here, and obviously there are a lot of people that are not being used in a sense, or are being untapped in a sense. So obviously using this platform could bring I wouldn't say tremendous investment in the long run for many companies here, and analyzing data from its source, from a range of places, employer sales, customer management, human resources, public sources, to make decision. Is it enough? Obviously you need more information, but is there really such data that could tell you if that person is really suited, especially for decision making process, right? I mean, I don't think no AI can top it off in terms of making the best decision. Obviously, that's one unique characteristics that a human being has over others, other human being, other animals or other creatures, because we have the intellect to be able to understand the nuances of information and coming up with a viable, unique problem-solving skills. Otherwise, we won't be human if that's the case here. But can an AI machine comes close to it? Similar to like how the Terminator film is, would they replace us in the future? We don't know. Anyway, So obviously they're going to invest on it, focusing more on AI technology and machine learning to improve its with a single solution for managing entire talent life cycle, including hiring, retaining, growing need for workforce here. And obviously, it's going to be a investment that many companies will look at or are using right now. How fast can they adopt it, or how effective can be? Only time and tell. Now, obviously, you need more resources, more data to be able to say accurately if the job posting that you are looking for is a match for that particular applicant here. And obviously, for the company, they're always looking for more people, more data scientists. So if you're a data scientist and engineer, you can apply to their company right now. Anyway, next we have Amazon. Amazon is always in hot waters. You know, we just discussed before. You know, the good, the bad, and ugly with their antitrust issue with the United States government. And now, you know, they remove a particular, I won't say known brand, but it's a lesser brand of sorts. RavPower, if you've heard of it, it's a popular phone battery and charger brand. So similar to what am I using here now? I forgot. Similar to a Yuki. What's the other brand that I'm using? I keep forgetting. Where's the crap? I forgot the brand. Anyway, so they removed it for a very particular reason, since they removed the company's listing because of fraudulent marketing practices, in a sense. So they're doing their job, good job for them, or not necessarily. Anyway, so let's take a closer look. So as I mentioned, so they're because RavPower, the company, is offering their products and offering additional $35 gift card in exchange for a review. So they're buying reviews from their customers. So typically when you buy an item, which I just did earlier today, I received an item. Obviously, they ask you to give a feedback. Some does, some does not. So it varies. And obviously, as a seller, you want to get positive feedback or great feedback so that it informs the other future customers that maybe they should consider buying this product and so forth. And in their case, they're doing, let's say, gray marketing strategy in terms of coaxing their customers to give a positive review. Now, when Amazon found out, which is a violation of their company policy, which automatically bans the company here. Now, is it the company's fault here? RavPower, I'm sure other companies are doing this. This is just the case that they're more known compared to others. I'm sure there are unknown products that are being, are doing the same practices here, which we'll dive into a little bit later on. So all of a sudden, their product listings have disappeared. So if you were to go to their product listings in the website or in Amazon storefront, you cannot find it anymore. So, but what's interesting here, obviously the company, the RavPower, has their own separate online store. So maybe they're not so reliant, so they're willing to risk it. But obviously, if you have a smaller company, reliant on the Amazon's platform, then it's kind of risky. Now, the interesting here, is it the fault of RavPower for doing this business practices, or is it the fault of Amazon here for allowing such practices to proliferate in the first place? Now, according to the article, the issue of fake reviews, inflated, paid, and other forms of scammy reviews is rampant in their platform. So it's not the first time we've heard of these issues. There have been reviewers caught or even banned for promoting products because in exchange of fees, right? So there's a conflict of interest in a sense, right? So you cannot give an unbiased review if you're being paid by the company you're trying to review. Anyway, so according to Amazon, they're doing their part. So it seems. And what's interesting here is actively trying to clamp down on this kind of fraud. If they're really actively trying to clamp, then they have the capability, they have the resources. They're a $1 billion company. Right? And according to the company, they're saying they have stopped more than 200 million suspected fake reviews before they were even before they were seen by the customers. So that's how bad the situation is. The fact that 200 million suspected fake reviews are in existence, right? That's the one that they didn't caught. How about the others that they didn't were not able to see? So this is where they able to stop the fake reviews. That's how much more in their actual platform. And how come they're not able to stop those practices? And the fact that they're asking help, which is on on a related article, they're asking they're wanting help with dealing with user review abuse. Obviously being a responsible user is one thing. How about a responsible company that proliferates, that encourages this such practice? Obviously, whether you're Amazon, you're Google, or even Apple, as a company, you own the platform. You spend so much time, investment in keeping track of your customers' profile so you can sell it to third-party advertisers or company that would sell you more products. Why not do the same for devious acts like this one? I mean, it's not my first time saying this, but they have the resources. The fact that Jeff Bezos is promoting he wants to go to space, yet problems like this that continues to proliferate, they're not able to solve it. Meaning, put a stricter entry barrier for your sellers so that it limits their chance of doing malicious activity. So let's say if you're going to register, it has to be established in, let's say, in the United or whatever country you're listing your company. So if it's in the United States, it has to be a registered company so that when Amazon checks or any government business or any government agency were to check, if it's a legit business, then they can keep track. If it's not a legit business, then you're not allowed to sell in their platform. That would be an easy solution, right? You don't need to use algorithms to keep track of unsavory practices like this one. This is just a symptom because of a bigger problem, which is that's one thing I think Amazon is not grasping the concept, and obviously asking asking users to help them out as if it's the user's fault for, let's say, if they were to buy the product. Does it mean that you're consenting the bad practice? Yes, in a sense. But the point here is everyone is responsible here. It's not just the consumer, the seller, the platform themselves, right? And what's interesting here, on a related article here at arstechnica.com, Amazon is now using their PR by stating that they're blaming social media companies for sales of fake Amazon reviews. So meaning, let's say you're selling a product, you get someone to endorse it through social, whether in Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, whatever, and then they'll give you a link, right? So to buy the item, you go to Amazon link and so forth. They get a commission of sorts. Is it their fault? Obviously you have to be more responsible, but the point is you made it so accessible for fraudulent companies to sell in your platform. Don't blame others for doing it. Look internally first before you blame other parties here. So obviously everyone's at fault for buying it. Just like when you say, if the company is producing a sweatshop which is let's say made by underage children, and they're not paid, and they're underpaid and so forth, so that's abuse, right? If you knew they're doing that, would you buy their product? It's a similar concept. If they don't want bad practices to proliferate, then you have to fix your problems internally first before you ask other people or external parties to help you out, which I think would be commendable. But you're boasting that you stopped more than 200 million suspected fake reviews, meaning 200 million is not a big number in your opinion. For me, that's a lot. Meaning, maybe 1,000, tens, hundreds, thousands is considered a lot, but 200 fake reviews, meaning, it goes more beyond the problem here in terms of it's not a root cause, it's a symptom to a bigger problem that you're dealing with here. hopefully they could find. I'm always optimistic. Hopefully Amazon can see the importance here. Obviously, if you can just imagine, in a day where there's less fraudulent sellers, all are legit, then everyone would be confident in buying their products knowing that it's trusted, whether it's Amazon, Lazada, Shopee. And if it's a trusted seller, people are more confident in buying and they will buy more. So if the seller is trusted, the platform is trusted, they would generate more, right? That's that's how I would behave. So let's say if I'm comparing here locally, you have Lazada and Shopee. I tend to favor Shopee more because it's more reliable compared to Lazada. I have bad experiences in Lazada compared to Shopee. So obviously you only have two choices. So you choose one over the other. If there's only one option, like in this case Amazon, then you're stuck with it unless you go on your way. Actually, in the case of Amazon, I think counterfeit products with the brands such as Nike use their platform to sell their product, but it only encouraged counterfeit products to sell in their platform. Which, what's Amazon doing about it, right? And to the point that that Nike left the platform and relied on their own online store to sell their products. So they didn't even need Amazon. But that's not the case for many businesses, right? So we'll see how it pans out. Anyway, finally for our last story. So we were talking about Sony earlier regarding they're going into the FPV realm of creating their first ever drone to capitalize on their uh, photography market, selling DSLRs, high-end cameras and so forth. So to cater to those, they're selling a drone, and it's not cheap. Obviously, it's going to cost you $9,000 here. So that's a lot of zero. So that's $500,000 if you look at it. So they teased their development. Where was it? They officially debuted it. So let's take a closer look. Yes. So it looks like a regular drone here if you were to take a closer look. But obviously, you look at the bottom, you can see a sort of a gimbal which holds a DSLR camera, which obviously they would like to encourage you using Sony cameras, which I'm using, by the way. Anyway, so they're calling it the AirPeak S1. So it's a version 1. So I'm assuming there'll be other versions in the future. So obviously, they're getting into this RAM to be able to cater to professional filmmakers here. And what's interesting here, and can fly at a very fast speed in terms of speed of 55 miles per hour in just less than 4 seconds. Now, is speed important here? Obviously, creating that cinematic look over a cliff, over in a forest and whatever. So in making it cinematic, you need to be able to move at a certain speed. Now, is faster better? Not really. But what's interesting here, the drone can carry a full frame mirrorless camera in this case. So as you can see uh, in the drone here, now can they carry an actual camera outside of a mirrorless, maybe an ARRI camera or even a red camera here? But with the way things are, it goes bigger and bigger. But what's interesting here is they're promoting that it can carry different Sony cameras. You have the A9, A1, A7R, A7S, and the FX3, which is the recent release here. So whether that's for you, obviously it's not going to be for enthusiasts here. So maybe if you're a YouTuber, you might be interested in, especially if you're a travel channel and so forth. You could use it a lot, or your business in photography or in video here. Now, what's interesting here is even though it can fly fast, or it can even hold a stable flight, even if there's a wind up to almost 45 miles per hour, so it's still stable. But the downside here is the flight will only top out at 22 minutes. Now, when it's fully loaded, it reduces by 10 minutes. So imagine that you have an FPV with your camera. I don't know, I'll be stressed the whole time if I'm the one shooting it, because if it goes far enough, let's say you only have 5 minutes to go one direction and then 5 minutes to come back, and then it would drop. You can just imagine losing your FPV drone, which is worth thousands of dollars, and then your camera, which is worth another thousands of dollars, and then add the lens and so forth. So you can just imagine the nightmare that you're conjuring up if you're dealing with this one. Now, what's interesting here is, despite the limitations of the time limitations mentioned, it has several features which is, comfort for many users, especially for a large amount that you have to invest. So there are sensors and onboard cameras for the drone to survey the surroundings, meaning it can automatically avoid obstacles. And I don't know if it has the same features like the DJI, the professional one. So if it, for example, it loses connections with the controller itself, or connection for whatever reason, normally a low budgeted drone, it would just drop down to earth, right? But for a more premium product, you expect it to be still hovering in air, and maybe you could just click a home button that it would return automatically, regardless. So at least your drone is safe, your camera that's way expensive, that you're assured that it would still be safe. Otherwise, I don't see the sense of using it if, the reliability, meaning being able to trust it, that when you use it in the field, that it will not do more harm than what you're supposed to be doing in the first place. So they're mentioning also that it could be a dual operation here. So someone is flying the drone while someone else is, obviously that's the whole point here. Someone would focus more on the flying, what scenery angles that you're supposed to be focusing. Then a camera operator will zoom in. Let's say you want a tighter shot on an individual or a setting and so forth here. Now, is it for everyone? Not really. So obviously when you buy the item, what's interesting, they're offering the drone itself has 4 propellers, a remote, 2 batteries. Wouldn't it be nice to have a larger battery capacity? But anyway, and a battery charger. So would you be interested to buy it? Even just for leisure? Maybe you could buy a cheaper one from the DJI brand. Anyway, so the model Airpeak S1 is going to be available later this year. So if you're interested of buying, the drone from Sony, you have to wait a bit. Anyway, I think that concludes our episode for today. Thanks again for joining me today. If you have any questions, or if you like to read the full article, I leave the link in the description below. As always, I'll see you again next week, same time, same channel. Take care and stay safe.